What really determines a nation's destiny? I mean, is it the size of its army, the amount of money in its treasury, or maybe how brilliant its leaders are? Well, an ancient record suggests a completely different answer.
You see, the ancient book of 2 Chronicles tells us that the answer isn't found in politics or power, but in a nation's spiritual heart. It traces the entire fate of a kingdom through the story of one central building, the temple in Jerusalem. And the premise is simple. As the temple goes, so goes the nation.
Our story kicks off at the absolute peak of Israel's power and influence, during the glorious golden age of King Solomon.
So right at the start of his reign, Solomon gets this incredible offer from God. Basically, a divine blank check. Ask for anything you want. And he doesn't ask for money or power or a long life. Instead, he asks for wisdom so he can lead his people well. And for that selfless choice, he's given everything. Not just wisdom, but riches and honor beyond anything he could have imagined.
So what does Solomon do? He channels all of this blessing into one massive national project, building a magnificent temple. I mean, this was a huge deal. It took 7 years with the whole nation chipping in. They used the finest materials like cedar all the way from Lebanon, just lavished with gold. And when it was finally done and dedicated, the chronicler says God's glory filled the place so intensely, the priests couldn't even do their work. This wasn't just some building, it was the heart of the nation, their culture, their government, their whole identity.
And it's right here, at this high point, that God lays down the principle that will define the rest of this story. It's a conditional promise. He says, look, if the people will humble themselves and pray, then their land will be healed. From this moment on, the fate of the entire nation is tied directly, unmistakably, to its faithfulness. But as you can probably guess, this golden age, well, it doesn't last. The nation is about to fall into a long, repeating cycle of faith and failure, a real dizzying series of highs and lows. After Solomon dies, the kingdom just fractures. And from this point on, the story becomes a total roller coaster. The nation's fortunes, its prosperity, its safety from enemies, it all rises and falls based on one simple thing: whether the king on the throne honors God in the temple, which was the symbol of his presence.
And you can see this pattern so clearly when you just compare 2 different kings. You've got King Ahaz, who trashes the temple with foreign idols, and the nation gets defeated. Then, a generation later, his successor, King Hezekiah, cleanses the temple, brings back proper worship, and prays for help. And what happens? The nation is miraculously saved from a huge invading army. The book presents it as straight-up cause and effect.
But maybe the most dramatic example is King Manasseh. This guy was one of the worst kings ever. He even put idols inside the temple itself. The consequence? He's captured and literally dragged off to Babylon in chains. But then something amazing happens. In his suffering, he finally humbles himself and prays. And God hears him and restores him to his throne. It's this powerful statement that no one is beyond forgiveness if they truly turn back.
So this up and down cycle continues. But there's one last bright spot in the story. During some temple repairs under a good king, Josiah, workers find something incredible: the long-lost book of the law, the foundational sacred texts of Moses. This rediscovery sparks one last big nationwide wave of repentance, a brief moment of hope right before the end.
But sadly, that revival, it was short-lived. The kings who followed Josiah went right back to their old ways, and the nation began to hurtle toward its tragic climax: total ruin and exile.
After generations of ignoring the warnings, the inevitable finally happens. The massive armies of Babylon, the superpower of the age, surround Jerusalem.
And after a desperate siege, the city's defenses are breached. And the very heart of the nation, Solomon's glorious temple, is set on fire and completely destroyed.
The city is left a smoldering ruin. Its people are shackled and marched off into exile in Babylon. The promise made centuries before is fulfilled in the most devastating way possible. And it really seems like the story is over, a complete and utter tragedy. But right when all hope seems lost, the Chronicle takes one last, totally unexpected turn, giving us a glimpse of hope literally rising from the ashes. So, decades later, the Babylonian Empire has fallen to the Persians, and their ruler, King Cyrus, issues an absolutely astonishing decree. He announces that the God of heaven has appointed him, a foreign king, to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, and he allows the exiled people to go home and do it. And so, this epic story doesn't end in ashes and despair, after all. It finishes on this incredible note of hope, a promise of return and restoration. The final message is crystal clear. Even after total failure and devastation, there's always a chance for a new beginning. And that leaves us with a powerful question, one that echoes right down through history and into our own lives today. From the ruins of an ancient kingdom to, maybe, the rubble of our own failures, what does it truly mean to find hope and to rebuild from the ashes?